Hi there. Today we are going to learn the power rule of exponents. It's also called raising a power to a power, so you can think of it that way as well. And we're going to discover this as usual by expanding and simplifying first. I'm going to write this expression first by dealing with this 2 outside the parentheses. Anytime you have a number outside of parentheses, it usually refers to talking about the entire quantity in the parentheses, just like how we're used to making it so that 3 times x plus 1 is multiplying times the whole thing x plus 1. We're multiplying the whole thing inside the parentheses. For this one, the whole thing is not that big. It's x to the 4th. So instead of multiplying, though, this is a power. So we're saying x to the 4th is being squared. And I have repeated this mantra throughout my entire mathematical career. I say, okay, to square means to multiply it by itself. So to square means to multiply it by, and whatever itself is, write it twice. So we have x to the 4th times x to the 4th. Now you can use your product rule to just add those exponents and know that it's x to the 8th. Or if you're a little rusty on your product rule, you could actually write out 4 x's being multiplied together for that one, and then 4 x's being multiplied together for that one, and say, okay, how many times does x multiply by itself? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that's x to the 8th. However, that's going to get really tedious after a while. So I'd recommend that you just, after a second, you notice that multiplying it will add it, and then move on with your life. Okay, so when we had our 4 and our 2, what did we do with those numbers to get this 8? Hopefully you can tell that you multiply the exponents. So when one is outside of the parentheses and there's another inside, we multiply them. So this rule is that you would take x and you'd put to the power of 4 times 2. We've done add and subtract, and now we're doing multiply, and we get x to the 8th. So you multiply the powers. Let's do a few examples where we do this. We're going to do this first one by expanding it. And you can either write, okay, w cubed, so 3 w's, and then write it 7 times and then count them up. Or you can write 7 w cubes, whichever one is easier for you. I have already started doing this really long way, so we're going to do it. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of 3 w's, so I need 2 more. Okay, now how many w's do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Whew! W to the 21st. I hope you can see that most of the time, if you remember how to do this correctly, then this way is easier. However, this way meaning just multiplying 3 times 7. However, this way is easier to remember. So if you don't remember it, or if you're doubting whether or not you remember it, just try expanding it out first. When in doubt, expand it out, and then you can figure it out. Okay, let's do this one. This one's interesting. It has a negative exponent. So we're going to just use exponent rules, which just say multiply a power to a power. So I'm going to multiply x to the negative 2 times 13, and I get x to the, a negative times a positive is a negative, and then 13 times 2 is 26. However, we don't like any negative exponents, so I'm going to put that negative exponent on the bottom. It's going to be 1 over x to the power of 26. Now, just for funsies, we're going to see what this would look like if we were multiplying it and expanding it out, because a lot of my students don't understand how we got this negative exponent. Like, how does that work? Is it just magic? Well, it is magic, but it's also very, very consistent with how everything has been working so far. So I'm going to expand this out, and I'm going to first get rid of my negative. I'm going to write this as 1 over x squared. That's what that is, and it's all in parentheses being raised to the 13th power. And that looks really ugly. But I know this 13 tells me I'm multiplying whatever's inside the parentheses by itself 13 times. So I'm going to do that. Okay, 1 over x squared and this is going to take a while. So I'm just going to keep going. I would recommend not doing this for every problem, but I usually do this once every time I come back to exponents just to remind myself what they mean and what the rules are, because sometimes I forget. Okay, I have 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, when you multiply fractions, you're multiplying across the top and across the bottom. And when we multiply, so 13 ones times each other equals 1 times 1 times 1, that's just 1. And then on the bottom, I'm adding all those exponents, right? Because that's the product rule. So I'll have x to the 13 twos is 26. So I got the same answer. And you could even, when you have a fraction like this, that 13, it's going to be 1 to the power of 13th, because we saw that on the tops. And then this is going to be times the power of 13 too. So it's multiplying times both the top and the bottom, but you can write it out, or you can just use the exponent rule, and it'll magically give you the same answer that we got by expanding it out. Okay, for this one, you can do your choice. And my choice is to, I'm just going to multiply them this time. I have written enough. So because I multiply the powers when it's power raised to the power, I'm going to do k to the power of 5 times 9. I wrote my little times there. And it equals k to the 45th. You can always expand it out. If you are like, wait, that doesn't make any sense, you can expand it out and verify and make sure. So now we're going to do this where we have more than one thing within the parentheses, and we're going to figure out what else that means when we have more than one thing in the parentheses. So I'm going to take this whole thing right here, and I'm going to write it out 3 times multiplied by itself, right? So negative 2x squared y cubed times negative 2x squared y cubed times negative 2x squared y cubed. Okay. If you don't remember what to do when you are multiplying these things that have exponents, you can expand it out even further, right? So 2 x's and 3 y's on each one. So I'm going to do the numbers first. A negative 2 times a negative 2 is 4. Times another negative 2 is negative 8. So this is interesting because this negative, usually we've just been like, oh, there's a negative, write a negative there. But this negative was affected by that 3. So if the negative is in parentheses, you're going to put it to that power 2. So if there's a 3 outside, then you'll say there are 3 negatives being multiplied together. Okay, then we have how many x's? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, did I do this wrong? I was like, there should be the same amount on each one. Okay, I wrote 1 extra x there. Okay, 5, 6. So x to the 6th, and then y to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so what I'm seeing is that 3 not only multiplied times that 3, but it multiplied times that 2. And it made it so that there was more than 1 2. So it multiplied times that 1 on that 2. There were 3 2's. Okay. And then there were also 3 negatives. So we found out that just like how when you multiply 3 outside something, when you are multiplying powers, the power distributes to all of the powers inside. Okay, now we're going to make our rule. I'm just going to distribute it. I'm going to write my 1 here. So 3 goes to the negative, 3 goes to the 1, 3 goes to the 2, and 3 goes to the 3. So this will be a negative. I'm actually going to write it out. That negative is like negative 1 times something. So negative 1 cubed, a negative times a negative times a negative, and then 2, so times 2 to the 1 times 3, okay, times x to the 2 times 3 times y to the 3 times 3. And it gets easier once you get used to it, right? So negative 1 cubed is negative 1. And then 2 cubed is 2 cubed. Okay, this is going to be x to the 6th and then y to the 9th. So when I simplify that, negative 1 times 2 cubed is negative 8. And then x to the 6th and y to the 9th. If you don't know what this is, we did go over perfect cubes and perfect squares in a previous unit, but if you don't know what this is, you can always put it into your calculator. Sometimes your calculator uses this little caret symbol. You can use that. You may have to find it out depending on your calculator, or you could just put in 2 times 2 times 2 and you'd get it that way too. Okay, let's go ahead and do this. Ooh, I'm going to expand. So this one has a negative. I'm going to put that negative at the bottom when I expand it, because for me, I don't like looking at negative exponents. So I'm just going to put it like that. So this is my new expression, and it's going to be squared. So I'm going to write 4w cubed over p squared times itself. Okay, when I multiply bottom times bottom, top times top, I get 4 times 4 is 16. Then w cubed times w cubed. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3 w's. That's 1, 2, 3 w's. So that's 6 w's in total. And then I have 1, 2, 1, 2, 4 p's. Okay, so when you expand and you don't write every letter every single time, it's actually quite simple. But if you want to write all the letters every time, you can. Okay, let's do our exponent rules. And I'm not even going to write the times. I'm just going to draw my arrows. So 3 cubed, t to the power of 2 times 3 is 6. And then r to the power of 5 times 3 is 15. Now, whenever you have a number and it's going to be a smaller number, you should simplify. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So that is my final answer. Once you know the exponent rules, it's really, really fast. And I would recommend doing it the way I've done it all my life, where I expand it first and then I go, oh yeah, that's right, that's the rule, and then I move on. Okay, here we go. This is to the 9th power. So with permission, I'm not going to expand this out because it's going to take a while, but you would write out this expression 9 times. So I'm going to put my little 9 in there. So negative, there's going to be 9 negatives. And then this is there's a 1 there. So 1 times 9 is 9. And then this is 9 times 5. And then this is 9 times 5. So 9 negatives. Anytime there's an odd number, it's going to just be negative. Then 2 to the 9th. I don't know what that is. I'm going to put that into my calculator and find out in a second. M to the 9 times 5 is 45. K to the 9 times 5 is 45. Okay, let's find out that 2 to the 9th and figure out if we should write it out. 2 to the 9th, 512. Okay, let's go over here. So 512 is, on my assignment, it says if it's less than 1,500, then you should write it out. So it's less than 1,500, so I wrote it out. It's negative 512 is my coefficient, m to the 45th, k to the 45th. All right, that's all. Good luck.